Well, hey guys. Welcome back to Style Over Substance.
I was like, Scarlett, who are you talking to?
The pause was, I was like, do I always say well as my first thing? And I think I do, as that's where I got lost. But hi guys.
Hey Scarlett, how are you?
I'm pretty tired, I'm not gonna lie. So I do apologize if I'm a little bit clumsy with my words. But yeah, no, I'm not too bad. The weather's been beautiful, which is really up to my spirits. And a lot of my tiredness is my own fault. I was dog sitting this weekend and I let the dog sleep in my bed because he was not sleeping outside in the living room. And I thought, yeah, it'll just curl at the bottom and it'll be fine. No. And then on Sunday, so we're recording this on a Monday. I'm hungover from that. I'll be honest.
Oh, okay.
I've got the dregs of that. It's not too bad, but I could feel fresher. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that.
How are you?
I was actually telling Mr. Big not that long ago. I was like, I feel like I'm for sure slipping into functioning alcoholic mode. Do you know what I mean?
Love it.
You know when it's like, I can have a drink every night, but I need that drink, you know?
Yeah. You know what? I catch myself being like, when was the last time you had a day not drinking?
Doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, that would be me today, but mainly because I've had children in my care. So.
Yeah, it's necessary. That's it. It's necessary to get by, isn't it? But I still turn up to work, so that's where the fun
Exactly. When that stops happening, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, how are you?
I'm all right, actually. You're right in saying that this weather has really perked up my spirits. Because I always say, I'm an absolute sun worshipper. I love sitting in the sun. I love absorbing the rays, all the good UV rays. And so I've been doing a bit of that. I am back on the cross stitch because I need to finish it.
Yeah.
Do you know how... I think the last time I felt so compelled to finish something was my uni degree. I'm not even lying. I look at it and I'm stitching this thing and it pains me. And I'm like, this is taking me so long. It's so painful. I can't wait till it ends. I'm never doing this ever again in my life, but I need to finish it. Ugh.
I think the hardest thing, so a lot of projects I do that's a bit more like that, is either if I'm crocheting something, it's normally a toy or a gift for somebody. There's an end product, but you're sort of almost it's you're painting a picture, but in quite a tedious way.
Oh,
you
it's
know,
so tedious. Yeah. It is supposed to be
relaxing,
part of decoration in the flat. So that's my end goal. But
fabulous.
I didn't think it would take this long. Oh, it's been a year.
So listeners, if you've been with us from the start, which snaps for you, I think we're on what are we on episode 48, 49?
Yeah, 49 I think it is, something like that.
Yeah, and so that means we've nearly done 52 weeks of this, which is madness. And I think we referenced cross stitch right at the start.
Yeah. This, honestly, the podcast started just as much about cross-stitching and knitting as it did about fashion.
I love it. So is your cross-stitch your fashion story this week?
No, it's not. My fashion story is that actually, right at the beginning, we kind of talked a lot about Bangladeshi garment workers and workers' rights and the Rana Plaza incident that happened years ago, and just kind of the working conditions that you can find within the supply chain of fashion. And my fashion story is the fact that the Bangladesh Accord that came out from all of this that happened, for those who don't know, the Rana Plaza was this massive garment factory in Bangladesh. And for years and years, the workers who were working in this building were complaining of structural safety hazards, quite frankly, and just appallingly, the building one day flattened on everyone who was working in this building. It's so tragic. And after years of people kind of anticipating that something tragic like this would happen, it finally did. And so from that, there was a lot of like international spotlight on the conditions that these people are working in, their pay, their workers' rights, their choice in the matter and things. And the Bangladesh Accord kind of came out of it as a way, you know how these things go. It's like a loose commitment, really, to improving working conditions from like, you know, these big fashion brands and companies all the way down to those who supply the material, the labor, all of that. And yeah, so it was supposed to say like, we're committed to improving the safety for these people. And this accord is due to expire this week, actually. And so there's been a lot of protests from, primarily because how the industry is set up, it's a lot of women who work in these positions. So there's been a lot of marches and demonstrations to kind of make sure that we're not going backwards and that these things are upheld and actually strengthened, because we talked about in the past how easy it is to skirt around things like this.
And make wishy-washy promises. Yeah.
So that's my fashion story. It's just like at a time where everything is so up in the air, everything in the world, quite frankly, it would just be appalling to see like these women have to go back to how things were, how things kind of are.
Yeah, it's just unacceptable, really. Like we should have learned that lesson by now. Like enough has happened. And, you know, we talked about this and there's been documentaries and all of that for a while on these such things, and it's just not good enough. And I think it's that harsh thing of like, we all are subconscious, not even subconscious, we're all unwillingly buying into that, you know, and that's not like the right position for these like retailers to put us in either. Yeah,
exactly. We are all like willing participants in it, but at the same time, as a customer, you either know very little about supply chains in fashion, or you know about it and you really don't have many other options because they're all part of the same beast. You know, you can shop independently, people who make things by hand via, you know, someone who lives locally to you or Etsy or whatever, but you really have to be committed to that full time to really avoid any kind of like blood on your hands, in a sense. So, started the episode with a downer, but really important though.
It's really important. So don't worry, I'm gonna change the narrative, the direction. I'm talking about vegetables. Have you seen, well, you have, I sent the pictures to you, the Hermes bags made of vegetables. So guys, we'll post it on our Instagram, but if you haven't seen it, basically this artist called Ben Desner, I don't believe it was commissioned, but potentially could be. He's created the Birkin out of vegetables. So cucumber is one of them, which is quite convincing. We have cabbage, a little less so, a little rough around the edges. Potentially using some spring onions there as handles and details. And then I think my personal favorite is the asparagus.
Yeah, that's convincing.
I sort of thought I didn't really read the proper description when I first saw it, and I was like, are they having a laugh? Like, I genuinely thought like Hermes was bringing out this bag that looked like it was made of asparagus, and I was just like, what are we coming to? And I'm not too sure. So currently with Hermes, that is sort of, those are the last 3 pictures on their grid. So I don't know if they're the prequel to an announcement about sustainability, if it's their big vegan leather like announcement of what that's going to look like or how that's going to be. But yeah, they're really cool. I think it's really cool that an artist has made, you know, art out of bags.
So is it art you can buy?
I don't think so. I don't think
just
so.
work for their grid, like an artist putting
I think it's work for their grid. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be. And when I first saw it, the artist hadn't even posted about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think it's for anything like that, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, I wouldn't mind betting that like it's for something. You know, these things are never normally just because.
100%.
But they're really cool. I think it's a great, very innovative idea. And I'm down for that. But it was funny, actually, the other day I was talking to a family friend at a barbecue about the price of Hermes, because apparently a book that they were reading featured, it was The Red Sparrow, and it features sort of like a hot list apparently of like the things you're meant to own. Like, so it'll be like you should have like a Berlotti tie and this Hermes perfume, and it's like this kind of like, it has these little like tidbits in the book and recipes and blah 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 in it. And so I was explaining like, oh, I'm assuming that perfume will be very expensive because Hermes is really expensive, and contextualizing that like handbags are expensive, but then there's Hermes handbags, and explaining like the juggernaut that is Hermes to them. So yeah, I think it's a really cool idea. I don't know how they sort of like constructed it. I'm assuming a lot of like cocktail sticks.
Yeah, probably. But I do know that news has been swirling around about Hermes investing in a mushroom leather, as you've kind of alluded to, and they are going to be making, it's like a carry-all, a men's kind of travel carry-all bowling bag type looking thing. I've seen just one image circulate of it, and it is due to be made from this same mushroom leather. Now, whether this is like a very limited run of this thing, whether it's a collector's piece, whether it's just, you know, for the lols, or whether they'll start expanding their range into vegan leather, who knows? But yeah, I definitely think they're being dramatic and they're going to announce something.
Yeah, I hope so. So if they have obviously announced it by the time this goes out, we'll
update
you guys. But yeah, we interrupt this broadcast to remind you, go follow us on Instagram, Style Over Substance Pod. Shoot us an email, styleoversubstancepete@gmail.com. Find us on YouTube, find us on Twitter. We've got all the links on our Instagram. You know what to do. Then we're taking another turn, aren't we? So this week we're discussing one of our favourite. We haven't mentioned them for a little while.
No, they should pay us at this rate.
Yeah, but so the sponsor of our series, Boohoo.com, and other like-minded brands. This was again another proposed topic by one of you guys. So again, thank you so much. We really appreciate when you send us messages. But yeah, we're going to talk about sort of the culture of the Boohoo's, Pretty Little Things, Misguided, insert brand name
Shein,
here.
I think.
Yeah,
Shein, maybe.
And basically, yeah, we're going to talk about the way they copy other designers and just the general shit they do, really.
So yeah, it's kind of like a part 2 to our episode about counterfeits and dupes.
Yeah,
it's not the same thing as counterfeiting, but it's like another important discussion, I think, because these fast fashion brands, we're talking, as you said, like Zara, Shein, all these other random, very cheap brands, like I Saw It First, I bet they all do it. It's like seeing something that's popular by a designer and then completely ripping it off and just like making a very cheapened or cheaper version of that. But also like the discussion between stealing smaller artists and smaller independent brands lines, designs, collections, and kind of profiting off that. It's an equally important aspect of the fashion industry, really, and it happens all the time. But so yeah, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it is morally better for a brand like, or a company like Boohoo, Pretty Little Thing, Shein, whatever, to rip off a large company such as Mugler, or, you know, Jean-Paul Gaultier, or a big iconic brand, than it is to essentially rip off a small and independent designer? Or is it all the same?
It's really difficult because obviously ethically it's wrong all the same. But I think there's more of a measured potential impact on ripping off a smaller brand.
That sounded like an essay.
I did do critical thinking, guys. So I think we all had to, didn't we? Yeah. I think that the consequences it has for a smaller brand where their name might not be out there so much, and then you don't realize they're being ripped off. So like it's going to be way more apparent if like Saint Laurent, Thierry Mugler, all of that stuff is being ripped off. But if it's someone who's a bit more of an independent name that you're not such an avid fashion follower of, you might think it's an original Zara design or Boohoo design. And I think the difficulty is, let's be honest, none of us are going to be buying the stuff they're probably ripping off. However, I have seen the likes of, I don't know how you say it, Shein, Shine, whatever, like,
I have no idea.
That website, Shin, ripping off independent people where the prices aren't super different, and then that's where it's really bad. So like an influencer I follow called Megan Ellaby, who's an absolute babe, has her own fashion brand called Saturday by Megan Ellaby, which is mainly knitwear, tops, and t-shirts, and they're all printed and funky and whatever, and they've literally like point blank copied these designs for maybe like Megan Ellaby's would be like 30-40 quid, and they're doing it for like 12-15, and like that's the same price bracket really, you know, like if you can afford, I don't know, I just think like it's not saying you're not ripping off something that's £500.
It's like it's the same.
You're stealing customers essentially, and then I think that's pitiful. But yeah, what do you think? Do you think there is a worse option?
Well, I don't know. Okay, so my train of thought is that counterfeits, when it's like you rip off their logo, you pretend to be something you're not, that's bad. There's no reason for that. I think it is better to rip off a larger company because they have the money to fight you on it. They have the money to even, like, as you said, they are so much more popular and in the public domain and visible by so many customers. People are going to pick up that
they already have a lawyer.
Yeah. And we all know we can see something that is made by Boohoo and be like, oh, that's a YSL. You know, that's a direct copy because we're so familiar with their designs. I think to steal customers or to just flat out rip off designs by a smaller brand which is trying, that we've mentioned so many times in the past how difficult it is to get your brand off the ground when it comes to fashion, and how much capital it requires and how much time and love and everything that it goes into making a small brand flourish. When you have these multi-billion pound companies, because that's what they are, they're massive, just stealing designs for no other reason than just laziness, because they have loads of designers, let's be honest. It is pitiful. And I think that in many cases, we're going to kind of delve into examples and stuff like that. But in many cases, it not only like demonstrates, but it like reinforces this like economic disparity in fashion. So we have, for example, a brand which is, okay, I'll go into the example now. During like the first wave, the first COVID wave, and we all started getting used to.
Sorry, what's COVID?
Oh yeah, sorry. It's this thing that happened like last year. No biggie. So when we all started getting used to wearing masks, there was this I believe it was this Latinx brand. I don't know if they were based in like Mexico, but it was a female founder. It was a Mexican brand, and they started making these kind of linen face masks with these gold chains, kind of like you have with like glasses chains or whatever.
Yeah,
like decorative, but
phone chains. Yeah.
And there's this influencer who's notorious. She's been outed by like Diet Prada for so long and so many times. I think her name's like Danielle Bernstein or something. I could be wrong on her name, but she's a massive influencer, massive in the sense that she can collab with the biggest companies in the world, and she can demand a really high price for her work in collaboration with these companies. So she has her own merch company line, whatever. Of course she does. She's an influencer. And she basically she like reached out to this designer, said, I love your stuff, love what you're doing, bought like some of her stuff as a customer, like an appreciative customer. And if you had a small brand, you'd be like, oh my God, Danielle, she's reached out to us. She wants to like maybe wear our brand or buy into the brand at the very least. And so she bought stuff, and this is not her first rodeo. She's done this before. So she bought some of these masks, and then she made exact copies of this thing. And it goes to show that you can be like a minority in a country. You're setting up your business, you're trying to do well, and because of just the privilege that she, as this like influencer who's white and rich, quite frankly, she can just make the exact same thing and it's like an instant hit, and she can make millions of dollars from it. And so it reinforces that like economic disparity. It's like, while this like Mexican American woman could be making a killing of something that she's created, they make it handmade, whatever, she's doing her thing and it's going really well for her, it's her time to shine, it's like the rug's being pulled from her feet. Do you see what I mean? So in that sense, it is worse, I think, to steal from just a one-man band or like a very small company.
Yeah, because I think the legal point and the financial point speaks for itself. And then actually too many times have I heard that story of somebody ordering something. And so, because essentially what you can do is the problem is you can't return the item in sense, but like if I wanted to rip off like a Jean-Paul Gaultier dress, I would buy the dress, and then essentially what I would do is I would take apart all the seams, and then I'm making myself the pattern to create it, and then I can I've got that pattern then, and I can basically make it then in my black fabric or whatever it is, and kind of can pass it off as my own or something like that. And that's the problem, is that it's very easy to copy, just take it apart and see how it's made. That's just like that's the craft of clothes. And that happens so often with people, like you said, who've got the money and they just then like go and take it and like run with it. And it's really, really terrible, the impact that has, because what chance has she potentially got of being even heard, the
most you can do is just shout about it on social media. Like if you don't have money for like a solicitor or something. And what you were saying about taking it apart at the seams, I think there's this lingerie brand, and I'm not going to say the brand's name only because I'm not 100% sure if it was them, and I don't want to like drag someone who's done nothing wrong. But a lingerie brand that I follow and that I've loved for years, like since working in lingerie, and they'd done the same thing. They bought lots of pieces, and with lingerie it's all about construction more so than anything, and they bought all these pieces from another designer and just came out with the same Yeah.
It's like no shame. But then like it's still somewhat wrong, but we did touch upon this in sort of the counterfeiting / sort of fakes thing, that it's part and parcel. The way I would like to see these imitations, let's call them, is not being blatant rip-offs. So like, I'll post the photo that comes with this, but Kim Kardashian posted a picture of herself in a fitting and said, going through my old fitting pictures, and I found this look that Kanye made for me for my Miami trip last year. I went for neon vibes instead. P.S. Fast fashion brands, please can you wait until I wear this in real life before you knock it off, with a laughing emoji.
Yeah.
Then Misguided well and truly ripped it off, like it's the same look, and basically said, the devil works hard, but Misguided works harder. Kim Kardashian, you've got a few days before this one drops online.
That is so funny.
So they used it as part of their marketing with no shame.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, okay, Kim's is way nicer, but if you're only paying, like, Misguided like stuff is relatively cheap. Like it's, you know, it's just this thing of like, you could eat,
You know what? I don't feel sorry for her, because her and Kanye are wealthy as shit, and they'll bounce back. And also,
I don't even think it was like a Yeezy design. I think it might have been custom bespoke or something like that. But I just thought that no shame approach is like, then you're not even trying to hide it. No. I wonder if that was because it wasn't attached to a designer. But we've said before, it's quite hard to sue people in fashion. But
yeah, that's a really good point, actually, because if it were, say, Jean-Paul Gaultier that she was wearing, like blatantly, they would rip it off, but they wouldn't go on this like back and forth online banter, you know, this kind of like memeable kind of way that they went about it. They wouldn't be so blasé in copying and making it known online. Had it been attached to a more established brand, I don't think they would have done that. But
apparently it got deleted. That picture got deleted. I think it was sort of realized, I guess, with the comments. So it got deleted, but obviously now with the internet, nothing is deleted because someone screenshot that. And so, yeah, it's clearly on hazy ground.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I said, I don't feel sorry for her or Kanye.
No.
I think...
Hope the divorce is going well, lads.
I think there's another point to be said as to the reasons why I don't feel sorry for them. That design is not revolutionary.
No.
We've seen a wrap dress with a high slit and some ruching before. When I find it sad is when someone comes out with something that really is fresh and really is new. And I don't care if you are, you know, a really big company or you're a really small designer. It's sad that someone's kind of a team or an individual person's kind of design and vision has gone into this, and there are blatant rip-offs. But again, it's, as we've said before, it's like when it's a really big brand or it's a luxurious brand, let's say, and they're selling it for like £5,000, the same people who's going to buy it from fast fashion are never going to pay the luxury price tag on it.
For sure.
So there really isn't that level of competition. If anything, it just makes fashion a bit more like attainable. And dare I say it, more like democratic in that sense.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny, we discussed this the other day, but before there were the likes of like a Boohoo, for our prom at school, a lot of girls found this website that basically knocked off like dresses celebrities had worn. And basically, I think like a few girls wore like a dress that was worn in like Gossip Girl or something. Someone had, like Mila Kunis had worn on the red carpet. They kind of managed to get these style of dresses as their prom dresses. So really what these websites like a Boohoo, Pretty Little Thing, all of that, they're just responding to the fact that ultimately that's what we want. With celeb culture, we aspire to be these people. Like, and by the way, I'm not saying I aspire to be Kim Kardashian, because I absolutely don't. But we see these pictures of people and we see this glamorous life they live. Like, I'm still in my vortex of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Oh, I need to catch up on that. Oh.
And I find myself sort of wanting to be wearing heels everywhere. It's that thing like we've discussed before with like Sex and the City, that sort of inspirational, that aspirational life, where I'm like, that doesn't really suit my lifestyle. But you kind of find yourself wanting to sort of look really glam or whatever, and you respond to it. And so that's like, these people are making money off of that feeling we all have. Like, I'm pretty sure that Emily in Paris outfits were probably like ripped off, you know, like all these like fashion programs and stuff like that will be ripped off on these websites. And like you said, some of them almost base their name and their business off of it. Like, isn't it like I Saw It First or whatever? It's like, that's their main thing, isn't it? Just to rip people off.
Yeah, it's to get like a cheaper, like Kardashian Jenner vibe, or like Towie, or that sort of aesthetic.
By the way, I also love the websites that actually will use the pictures of like celebrities wearing like, you know, those like really cheap basic websites where they'll like make out like they're wearing it.
But beware of those, because it's like what you order is not what you thought was going to turn up, especially when they use someone else's image. Yeah, that's tacky, but still. Yeah, so you're right in that sense. But I think, would you say that one way to like combat this is, because you can't really trademark most designs, but do you think these bigger brands that rip off and thus capitalize off of designs made by smaller brands should be either paying them royalties or licensing fees for using their designs? As in the same way, if you wanted to use or you wanted to have a collaboration with Fila, and you wanted to use Fila's logo on your stuff as like a true collaboration, then you would have to pay the other brand licensing fees in order to use that and to capitalize off their brand's popularity to use it onto yours. Do you think that there's space for that? Because there's another scenario where we see really, really blatant copying. There's this artist, he goes by the name of Judith Supine, Judith Supine, but it's a male artist, and his name is Brandon Fagan, and he has these collages of lots of faces. It's like, you know, cutouts of different features all put together to make different types of faces, and they're like all in a row. They're really cool, very kitsch imagery. And this one woman who owns this shop called Meg by Megan Kinney, she bought this wallpaper with his designs. He's an artist. He's not a designer. He's an artist. Bought this wallpaper and then basically claimed that, oh, you know what? I was inspired by my wallpaper to create this print. She then goes on to like create like midi dresses and like very like bohemian wear using this exact print. Now, I'm sure as an artist, he probably hasn't trademarked this because loads of people do collages. But when you're using the exact same imagery, it's like a screen print of his work, essentially.
Yeah.
There should be some sort of licensing fee.
You're right. And actually, the way you described it made me immediately think of music. And, you know, if a song is featured in a TV show, or if you do a cover of somebody's song, I'm pretty sure you have to give them some money because of that. And, you know, we do see the likes of like Ed Sheeran being taken to court because someone's claiming he's stolen their riff for a song and things like that, and that they're comparable. And even recently, the girl Olivia Rodrigo, who's sort of like got the #1 album in the States right now, one of her songs is quite similar to a Paramore song, and lots of people are comparing that. And like whether or not Paramore, whoever wrote that song, want to take her to court is different, but lots of people do that in music. And there's much stricter sort of licensing and royalties when it comes to music, and actually that would be such an interesting way of doing something like that in fashion, where it would have to either inspire Boohoo to alter that design a little bit more, whether that is just doing a black dress in red or grey or navy, I don't know, rather than like this misguided option where it's literally trying to rip off the shiny gold metallic fabric of Kim's with their own cheap shiny gold metallic fabric. Yeah, I think that'd be quite interesting. But yeah, especially that example you said of the artist, it's so hard with stuff like that to trademark things. But that is also essentially illegal, because that would, in music, if you'd lifted a part of someone else's musicality arrangement and put it in your own song, that's unacceptable. Like, that's not right. That's not fair. So yeah, it's so difficult. And because I think there was something a bit like that with Dior maybe once, with something to do with an artwork and things like that. But normally designers want to do that to celebrate artists and be like, look how cool I am, I'm celebrating this artist.
Yeah, you want to align yourself with artists,
but I think that's what you touched on before, is also sort of the difference of finance, that the likes of a Dior can sort of almost buy someone's artwork or pay for the privilege to use it, but also they have the platform for it to be an incentive for the artist. Oh man, it's hard. But yeah, there definitely needs to be a financial reward for these people who have designed it. But then I guess who designed it?
Well, that's the thing. I think people would probably say, oh, you should take them to court. But by the time you take them to court, it's too late.
It's already been done for 5 of your other outfits.
Exactly. And it's all well and good to be paid after the fact. But it's always better for someone to give you the courtesy to reach out to you and say, I want to use your work, and let me let you in on the success of this. And so your name is out there, your work is out there, but we're going to make the garment or whatever and design the garment, but we're using, because essentially the reason why she wanted to use his print is because she thought it would sell. It's not just the idea of, well, I made the dress, so really I'm the one who made it a success. No, the artist also made it a success, because had it not been for their artistic flair and the way they put things together, you wouldn't have been interested in it. You wouldn't have wanted it, So I think that you have to give people their flowers while you can. And the fact that she tried to spin this like, oh, I just come by some wallpaper and I was inspired to make these items, I don't think that kind of excuse flies. But I think it's also a good example of how, with like collaborations with like, say, Dior, or there was the collaboration, not collaboration, but it was like LV came out with those bags and it was called the Masters, and it had like Van Gogh, it had Monet, it had, and that was a collaboration with another designer or artist, sorry. The kind of idea of putting that together, they have the money to properly collab, but it's not to say that smaller brands don't rip off smaller artists, or smaller brands can't do their part to at least reach out to the artist and say, I don't have much, can't offer you much, but let's do something joint together and let's both profit off it. There's no excuse to not attempt to do it that way.
Yeah, and actually you saying that, like the example I gave of the Xian, the brand they're doing that for, I don't know what their turnover will be, but like they make stuff in limited numbers. She's got a big following, yes, but like it's still a relatively small brand. I almost wonder if there should be some sort of ombudsman for these things in fashion that's sort of like, you know, you report if you've got problems with sort of paying your bills, or British Gas is trying to chase you for money.
Yeah.
And that isn't part of your meter, they're reading the wrong one or whatever, like you can take that to an ombudsman and they do that fighting for you, and that is free of charge, or like if they win it for you or whatever, like it's that kind of a thing where I wonder if there should almost be this sort of this center for fashion people where like then the legal fighting is done on your behalf, and maybe the answer isn't that you're trying to sue them for everything they're worth, but more that you get credit where credit is due. I think that's what really we've just been discussing, is that imitation happens. Imitation is the biggest form of flattery, you know, like all of that kind of a thing. But what's the most important thing is just to credit somebody. Like think of like writing a dissertation, how many times you had to do your references and all of that, because you credit people for what they say. Surely that's got to be done with this kind of a thing of like where you got your inspiration from or who you credit for stuff. But I also don't know how easy that'd be for like Pretty Little Thing to be like courtesy of YSL.
You can always put inspired by.
Yeah.
You know, I think if we can do it for music, which is very difficult to prove in a lot of cases.
But people often will say they've been inspired by stuff. You know, someone will have done like, if someone's done a jazz album, they'll reference jazz artists they listen to. Or if somebody's trying to like channel some sort of 70s rock, they're going to say that they listen to the Beatles and Rolling Stones. And you know, that doesn't mean that they've literally copied them. It means you're inspired by.
But there's a difference between being inspired by a general sound and taking a chord or a sample of the song. I think that another issue with ripping off other designers, other brands that might be smaller than you, is when you take fast fashion that essentially profits off of the exploitation of others, quite frankly, they would not be as profitable and rich and successful had they had to pay everyone their fair due. Yeah. It's like when we talk about billionaires and it's like, do you know how many people you got to scam to make that kind of money, to make 100 grand a minute or something, you know, something like that? That doesn't just come from a great idea, you know, it comes from not paying your workers, not paying create these items, getting things for very cheap, skirting around the law, cooking the books. It's a whole culture that I think we encourage and that we foster if we allow for this copying or rip-off, this like blatant rip-off. I'm not talking about the cases where it's very hard to establish whether a company ripped off another one. I'm talking about these blatant examples. If we don't do something about it, we're endorsing it, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I sort of had a tricky moment earlier this month where I don't know if it is the guy that owns boohoo.com or Misguided, whoever it is. I don't really care which one it is. But like, insert the brand here. A Manchester born, but I think they all are Manchester born, the UK ones. So a guy that I think his name's like Ryan Thomas or someone who used to be on Coronation Street was just doing this like 10 marathons in 10 days from London to Manchester to raise money. So like I saw about it because some people had posted about it and it's a fundraising thing. And then the people who were from Pretty Little Thing, Boohoo, whatever it was, were very much endorsing them and had a banner in Manchester. You know how all billboards are sort of electronic now, like Times Square, like a banner doing it because they're friends with him and they donated money. And that just for some reason didn't sit well with me because, like you said, I don't feel like this money is actually gained from the most honest way or the most ethical way. It didn't sit well with me that this person who's got such extreme wealth from these terrible websites, and don't get me wrong, I've bought stuff off them in the past, whether it's from a costume or like for a night out dress. We're not immune. I'm not immune to it.
Yeah.
So I'm not holier than thou. But it just didn't sit well with me that this very wealthy guy was just able to sort of like just put down this cash. It just, I don't know, it really left a bad taste in my mouth. I have no idea why, but
it doesn't like exonerate you from your sins if you're like, oh, okay, I've been dragged at court. Okay, I'll just pay you something to shut you up.
Yeah, and I actually like, I think one problem I really have with these websites, and we touched on this with the Black Friday sales, is that I just don't understand the pricing. I actually think it's ludicrous for clothes to be under a certain cost. I know that people struggle with money in this world, but we're doing them no favors by selling them something that costs £10 that's going to fall apart in 2 weeks. You know, like it would be way better for there to actually also be some regulations on how much clothing should cost, because I just think it's sort of unacceptable that, like, how on earth are you paying somebody the time that goes into sewing an item, and you're paying somebody what to make a £9 dress? Like, that's so like, yeah, that they leave a bad taste in my mouth with everything that goes with it as well. So I think it was maybe if they had more of a noble price point or something, it would help.
But it only helps.
I'm really annoyed at them now. So continue.
But it only helps if the money's going to the right place, isn't it? That's like part 2 of
very true. Very true. Yeah. I don't mean it so he gets better margins. I mean so that maybe that's a whole other conversation, whether or not there should sort of be a minimum wage for clothing, as in not for the workers, a minimum
pricing structure. Yeah, that's actually a good topic. We should do something like that.
And a maximum pricing structure.
oh yeah, Chanel is the first on the chopping block.
Love it.
So yeah, that's all I really have on the matter, to be honest. I think we could do so much better to curb this sort of snaky behavior. I just don't see it happening anytime soon, if I'm honest.
No, because people do like to cheat and, you know, sort of fib their way through life, and they kind of convince themselves that they've thought of it maybe. And the problem, like you said, of like, how do you differentiate between inspiration and taking a bit of something?
Yeah,
there's a very fine fuzzy line about that. But yeah, it's interesting. And actually, I think a great poll for us to put out would be, would you be prepared to buy something knowing it's like a like for like ripoff?
Yeah,
if that would put you off of buying something.
Yeah, I think that's a good poll, because I think there's going to be a lot of liars out there. We've all bought stuff that we know is a rip-off. That's why we shop at Zara.
I actually think if it was sort of like a lot of what these, I always think of these like cut out dresses, you know, that like Kim will wear and stuff like that. And I would just be mortified if someone was like, oh, you're trying to look like Kim there. I think like if it was a very, you know, like there's big fashion moments, you know, like the Liz Hurley safety pin dress and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think there are certain things I'd be very sure to avoid wearing in that sense. But yeah, do you have any other poll ideas?
No, I think the one that you've put forward is a good one.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks again, guys, for listening to another week of Style Over Substance.